welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is death and rebirth and the process or the dynamics of change. So it should be a fun conversation on all different kinds of levels. But before we get started, let's take a moment to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to allow yourselves to become present to your physicalness, to the sensation, to be here in your body, right here, right now, and appreciate this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning. Good morning to everybody else who's joining us. It's great to be here with you. And today we're talking about death and rebirth and the chaos that is an kind of an essential part of the process. The disruption, as the old loosens its hold and the new starts to emerge. And this conversation actually comes about through, Rosalind says, I love this. Rosalind says, like a scab that's ready to shed, sometimes it feels too raw for the fresh skin to be exposed. Wow, what an analogy. I have a visceral feeling about that. And I think you captured it so beautifully, Rosalind, really. It is that interim place. This conversation came about, or is coming about, as a result of a session that I did with someone, and it was really, really interesting. Really interesting. This person is a facilitator of sacred ceremony, and they've probably they've had many lifetimes as a healer, and we did this session around self-acceptance. And I think that this is something that so many healer people can relate to, in our lives, being told that we're too intense, we're too sensitive, we're weird, or, we don't have the same social skills that lots of other people have, not a particular interest in standing around the water cooler talking about the latest celebrity gossip, for example, and more interested in talking about things like the nature of the universe and life, etc. So many of us have had these kinds of experiences, and also being told that we're too emotional, we're too sensitive, etc., etc. And so we were working, and as a result, lots of healer people have profound issues around self-esteem and also being seen. And part of the being seen phenomena that I've encountered with so many healer people is memories of violent deaths, violent reactions to their wisdom and knowledge and their witchiness, shall we say. And so many of us have traumatic memories of being tortured and killed, whether we were stoned to death or drowned or burned or hung or flayed or, all kinds of horrible, horrible things. And for this particular person, having had many lifetimes and this is not to talk about what reincarnation is or if it even exists, but having some kind of deep memory of these kinds of events. The session, it was really interesting. This person relived multiple instances of being murdered and tortured, once being drowned with rocks being tied to their feet in a lake, and another time being burned. And so in this situation, through this session, it was very much a literal experience of death and rebirth. And so the rebirth part was the freedom in this moment of time, this emergence from these deaths, the survival of these deaths, which was fascinating. Good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here with us this morning. And by the way, if you guys are writing comments and I'm not responding, it's just because I don't see the comments. So if you want your comments to be seen, please go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page, and I can respond to comments that are, I see the comments from that that Facebook page. Anyway, so, or the Enlightened World Network YouTube channel, by the way. So what was fascinating about this, and I'm seeing it all over, death and rebirth as something that's literal, but also something that is metaphorical. Anyway, for this person, what arose from that was, it was like the phoenix rising from the ashes. It was a rebirth, essentially, having gone through these experiences of death and transcending them. And it's pretty remarkable dynamic to witness, to be able to go through those experiences. And when we debriefed afterwards, it was, what was fascinating is that this person was talking about how it took a conscious choice to allow these things to occur and not try to grasp them, not try to hold them, not resisting them. And so this process of death and rebirth, this chaotic upheaval that we are experiencing on so many levels, culturally, personally, interpersonally, environmentally, all these upheavals, our tendency is to want to try and hold what is familiar, to try and control the situation. And the key in being able to make these transitions is to find a way to flow with it, to allow the transitions rather than resisting. And I saw this also with another client on a personal example, which I thought was so beautiful. This person, like so many people, believe that we can control situations, or that we can divert negative situations if we just worry enough. Like that worry is a way that we can avoid the onslaught of negative circumstances. And this has been a real challenge because this person has created what's been a successful, although not pleasant, strategy for themselves, right? And it's kind of like when we make an association. Let's say I have a win, I have a big win, and it happened that that morning I put on two different socks. And then because I had this big win and I put on two different socks that day, I start believing that it's putting on the two different socks that gave me the win. And the more I believe that putting on the two different socks gave me the win, and I wear two different socks regularly, then and I keep winning, then that's reinforcing that. Then if I don't wear the two different socks, I'm going to think that I can't win. You know, it's like these things that are really unrelated, that we create a synergy between these things, and a relationship that is not causal, but we attribute a causal value to it. Anyway, so this idea that worry makes things work is it's not really a correlative relationship, but the belief has become that there's this relationship. Good morning, Isabel. Welcome. We're talking about death and rebirth. And so good to have you here with us, and everybody else who's joining us. And again, if you're writing comments and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see them. So go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and put your comments in there, and then we can have you join the dialogue here. So anyway, with this idea of worry, it was so exciting yesterday to have this person say, you know, I'm entertaining the possibility of what life might be like if I didn't worry, like what life might be like if I didn't have to worry. And this was, you know, it might sound silly, but for this person, it was a really major breakthrough. They haven't quite gotten to the place where they're not worrying, but they're dipping their toe into a willingness, at least, to discover that and explore that. And it's a really big deal. It is a death and rebirth, and there's fear associated with it because it's been such a deeply entrenched behavior and pattern. And when we do something that we believe works, you know, we've created this survival strategy, that to let go of that strategy requires us to face our fear of destruction or of annihilation, because we've so identified ourselves with whatever that thing is. It becomes who we believe ourselves to be, that if we release that, we're facing the fear of annihilation. And I think that may be one of the greatest fears we as human beings face, whether we do so consciously or not. So when our identity is threatened, you know, when we're facing radical change, there is the fear of, who will I be on the other side? Will I cease to exist? Will I still be here? And I've seen people show up to the session work that we do with Core Connection, experiencing that kind of fear and resistance. And to go back to the story I was telling about this woman experiencing these different deaths, whether it was real past life memory or whether it was metaphorical is irrelevant, but she was experiencing these deaths, and she deliberately chose to not resist that experience, to not try and hold on, to not fight those or that progression of event and experience. And in not fighting, in not resisting, what happened for her is that she moved through these things with profound grace and ease, actually. And so we are in a time of radical change. Things are changing on every front. And there's incredible disruption and inklings of greater disruption to come. And the question is, how do we navigate the challenges of this death and rebirth that humanity is undergoing? Good morning, Bernadette. And I don't know if I said good morning to Isabel, but Bernadette, I hadn't seen you there. So welcome. Sorry to have missed that. Anyway, we see upheaval perhaps in our own sense of being in the world. You know, we see upheaval in relationships. We see upheaval in the relationship of countries. We see climate upheaval. Thank you, Isabel. We see all kinds of change that's happening, and the pace of it is accelerating. And it's happening with everything, with monetary systems, with social structures. It's happening with everything. And so how do we navigate this emergence, this death and rebirth? And it brings to mind the caterpillar and the butterfly. And so I saw something really recently that was very interesting, talking about the caterpillar and the butterfly. So the caterpillar goes through this massive eating stage, and then finally it stops eating and it starts building this chrysalis. And then what happens is, it's not that the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly. The caterpillar dissolves, like literally becomes a massive goo. And it's from that goo that the butterfly emerges. And that dissolution, that dissolving, is really what we're confronting on so many levels. So Rosalind says, rebirth into a space where it feels safe, navigating the new with trust and faith. So the thing is, and I love what you said, Rosalind, that navigating the new with trust and faith, it is only the trust and faith that will make the new and the rebirth feel safe, because rebirth is going into the unfamiliar. So what we get to do is we get to embrace the unknown. And the only way that I'm aware of to embrace the unknown in a way that it feels safe, or that we can truly embrace it, is from a place of trust and faith. Trust that life is unfolding in its perfection. Trust that life is happening for us and through us rather than to us. That we are an expression of life unfolding. And when we can have that trust, it allows us the freedom to let go of trying to control things. It allows us the opportunity to choose to flow rather than resist, because the resistance is futile. You know, it's not going to stop the emergence, and it is going to create greater chaos and greater challenge to us individually and collectively. So Isabel says, I'm excited to watch all these illusions dissolving. Anything will be better than these slavery lifestyles. Well, I think that we are seeing these illusions dissolving, and things may get worse before they get better because of the deep resistance of institutionals, of institutions, and of even within ourselves, the fear of the unknown. That's really what it's about, is, the resistance and the chaos, rather than just being able to flow into the newness. We're trying to hold on to the old. Lisa says, can't go under it, can't go over it, have to go through it. Absolutely, 100% true, Lisa, exactly. And so another client friend had a really great observation, talking about, moving through this energy pattern. As you're moving, if you're trying, let's say it's like this Mobius strip or conveyor belt that's in motion. If you hold on to it, you're stopping that motion. And so we cannot hold on and be in motion at the same time. So this is like the 20 ticket, oh my gosh, where did my words go? I don't like these rides. It's a ride where, I can't believe it. Right now, my mind just blanked. A roller coaster ride. So it's, sorry, it's a 20 ticket roller coaster ride, and we get to just throw up our arms. And I hate roller coasters, historically anyway. They used to scare the stuffing out of me. So Isabel says, I don't want the old anymore, even that it concerns me at times yet, about how, I don't know what you said, what you're saying there, Isabel, the last part. I don't even know how to translate it. But the old is also the familiar, so the old is who we know ourselves to be. And that's a big deal, recognize that it means going into the unknown, not knowing who we are necessarily as we step into our new possibility. Welcome, Amanda. So good to have you here with us, and thank you so much for chiming in. Amanda says, is necessary. So illusions can be dissolved. The illusions / programming are beautiful. Well, I think that there's something to what you're saying, that we can see beauty in all things. We can see beauty in what we would have considered ugliness. That when we look at the bigger picture, we can see the magnificence of it, and all the pieces, and how they fit together. And if we get to choose beauty, we get to choose allowing. And the old saying, it's easier to ride the horse in the direction it's going. The change that we're undergoing, rather than fighting something, we get to choose something new. There's a big difference in the energy behind that, to choose to embrace the new, to choose to grow with in open hand, to hold with open hand. So Isabel says, not knowing the how is going to be concerning at times. Yes, right? Because we want to be in control. We want to be able to know what's coming. We want to know how to do it right. And it's uncharted territory. And moving, you know, like the early explorers were going into a world that was uncharted. You know, the people that were traveling the open seas, or that were traveling across the country that was unknown. And they didn't know what to expect, and all kinds of things, magnificent and terrible, awaited, you know. And that's what we're facing. So Rosalind says, serenity is knowing your worst shot is still pretty good, says Johnny Miller. Yeah, well, I think that we get to, again, choose to be an expression of life flowing through us, and not always the easiest thing, because it's not the way we think it should be or the way we want it to be. It doesn't look the way we would like it to look. And it doesn't mean that we don't get to help to shape it, you know, to choose a positive vision, to be living into that positive choice rather than fighting. That's the thing, you know, because the fighting breeds more resistance. So Buckminster Fuller said that you don't get rid of the old by trying to enforce the new. What you do is to create something new that's more compelling. And obviously those aren't the exact words, but I hope you get the idea. And Isabel says, but not worse than what it's been for generations. Well, we have no idea what's going to happen, really. We have all kinds of technology and weaponry, and that was never before seen on the face of this planet, at least to our conscious knowledge. And so that we have potential for tremendous damage and tremendous healing also. And right now, both these things are playing out at the same time, jostling for primacy. So we get to see what happens, and we have a part in it by elevating our consciousness, by focusing our attention on possibility rather than trying to hold on to what no longer serves us. Amanda says, yes, perception. Are we victims of what's happening, or rewriting perceptions in our mental bodies to grow beyond illusions in our brain and mental bodies? That's exactly what we're looking to do, Amanda. I don't believe that we're victims of what's happening unless we bury our heads in the sand and pretend it isn't, you know, unless we don't utilize our awareness. And so when we do presence ourselves to what's happening without avoiding, without turning away, we can also presence ourselves to the possibilities that are emergent. And that's what we're called to do, is to hold a higher frequency, and to be creating an openness and receptivity to what the universe wants to provide for us. There, you know, there are emergent potentials that we can be riding into the future and supporting it with our actions. So Amanda says, when I knew I was going to become homeless, which was a good 2 to 3 years before, it was scary to the unknown. The harder I held on, the harder it felt. Wow, Amanda, that sounds like quite a story. When you knew you were going to become homeless 2 to 3 years before it happened, that's pretty intense. And I wonder, it sounds like it sounds like quite an incredible story and an incredible journey. But the harder you hold on, the harder it feels. Yes. And I wonder, wow, that just brings up so many questions, Amanda. I hope that it sounds like you were able to grow from that experience profoundly somehow. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So Isabel says, I was always so scared of the unknown, but now I feel ready for the adventure that God chose to allow me to be part of. That's beautiful, Isabel. And scared of the unknown. I think we all have different degrees of that. You know, when we look at, I think that this is why some people are challenged with meditation, you know, to go into this place of letting go of our knowingness of who we are, and to kind of melt into the cosmos. And I think that fear of foundational annihilation is probably something that is present for most of us on different levels. So Isabel says we all created these facts for generations. I believe that all of this has been developing for generations, and we chose to be here at this time to be part of whatever this is. And it's big, whatever it is, it's big. So Isabel says, I know it's most likely to be the most horrific it ever happened, ever, but we all allowed this to happen. So it's time to embrace it. And again, things can turn on a dime. We really don't know what the future will bring. All these projections of how horrible things will be, we can turn it around on a dime. It doesn't mean that we get to be passive observers. And maybe that is the case. I doubt it. But things can turn on a dime. And so many of us are here now to be facilitating this transformation and the awakening and the elevation and the it's a hero's story. It really is a heroine's story, which is different from the hero's story. Dido, thank you for that really profound distinction. That there's, rather than conquest and domination and control, the heroine's story is about connection and collaboration and discovery and transformation. So Isabel says, ready to go into freedom, even if it means leaving this life. And I think that freedom is a big part of this transformation in so many ways. So I just want to thank you guys so much for engaging in this conversation. I think it's important because this is what we are facing as a collective, and learning the skills to be able to navigate it well will serve all of humanity. So Lisa says, look at me. I was a recluse in a bad marriage. Now I'm living at the beach in a new house, a smile in my heart. Yay, Lisa. Congratulations. The move is complete and it sounds like you're settling in really well. Dido, thank you so much for being here this morning. Isabel says, but if that's the case, I want to do it bravely, fighting for the truth. So rather than fighting for the truth, let's embody the truth. Let's just be the truth and embody it. And this whole fighting stuff, we get to transcend it. You know, let's just be the future that we want to create. And we don't have to fight to do it. We can just presence it. We can invoke it. We can call it forth. And so on that note, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I encourage you to please, please check out all the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, so, so, so much love to you and appreciation for you. And I hope to see you again here really soon.